Welcome to the My Personal Football Coach Youth Soccer Player Development Podcast, episode 36 with Ed Graper.
Welcome to MyPersonalFootballCoach.com's Soccer Player Development Podcast. Discover all the secrets, hints and tips about soccer player development and soccer coaching from some of the leading figures in world soccer. Here's your host, Saul Isaacson-Hurst.
Hi guys, welcome back to another show. This week we've got a fantastic guest for you. It's Ed Graper. Ed was, until very recently, the technical director of the Aspire Academy in Qatar. He also previously worked at Ajax. He runs now Total Football Consultancy. Really interesting story for Ed, really. If you don't know, Qatar recently won the Asia Cup, really against all odds, beating Japan in the final. So really amazing transformation of the football in Qatar. Really, the Aspire Academy, if you don't know, it's the most state-of-the-art facility in the world's football. The Aspire Academy has really been pivotal to the changes and the improvement in football in Qatar. So really interesting episode, this one. I'm really interested in those sorts of stories, structured environments, supporting and developing creative players, and this one really is not to be missed. So lots of gold and great knowledge from Ed. So this one I'm sure you're going to enjoy. Been a busy few weeks for me as always. Been travelling around, filming lots of sessions for the Coaches Pass. If you don't know, the Coaches Pass is an online resort on the website, the My Personal Football Coach website. It contains hundreds of practices like ball mastery exercises, 1v1 skills, how to volley, how to shoot, tutorials, but also now we're adding weekly sessions. So sometimes weekly video sessions of myself, or sometimes from academies from all around the world. We've got academy sessions from Dynamo Zagreb, Wolves, many different academies. So if you can check it out. It's a 7-day money back guarantee, so you can try it. If you don't like it, no questions asked, money back guarantee. Loads happening as well. Really excited to be getting more and more clubs on board with the My Personal Football Coach Club Partnership. It's a really unique club partnership, really nothing like it in the world. Supporting player development. All the players get on the app, the Dynamic Ball Mastery app, the world's leading technical ball mastery app, and all the coaches get the Coaches Pass. Lots of many little different things involved in that. So if you're part of a club and you're interested in supporting your players and your coaches and taking everyone to the next level, just drop me a line. But without further ado, let's get into the show. Okay, so Ed Graper, welcome to the show.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Can you give us a brief description of your playing and coaching background, please?
Well, although it's a long time ago, as my age is 57 years now, but I started as a little boy and to play football as everyone. Some clubs I professionally was in the youth academy was Feyenoord Rotterdam and Excelsior Rotterdam. I never brought it up to the first team, but I played on a decent high level on the third division. And after that, I chose to go to the sports university and to go into coaching quite early in my stage of life. So that's a little bit the background as a player. I was a midfield player, creative, scoring midfield player. That's probably why I always have also the preference for this kind of players.
Okay, and what about and then your coaching experience?
Yeah, the coaching experience. After the sports university, I directly went to coaching from like the under 7s, under 8s, and on amateur level. Then on professional level, clubs I worked for is Excelsior Rotterdam as an under 21 coach. I worked at Ajax Amsterdam for under 14. I was then working for a satellite club called Haarlem for Ajax as an academy director, assistant first team, second team under 19s and the 14s. Then in 2008 I moved to Qatar. I had a proposition for Aspire Academy and they asked me to build the basic structure for the Aspire Academy to build elite players for football. By then, in 2008, there was still no World Cup thing But in 2010, when Qatar won the bid to host the World Cup in 2022, the whole focus and organization changed quite rapidly. And then the aim is to develop players to play the World Cup in 2022. So I did that for 9 years. So I moved in 2017 back to Holland because after 9 years as Aspire Academy, I thought it was time for a new challenge and new things, and also to go back. Then I started my own football consultancy. I worked for 1 year with a Turkish club, Altınordu, which is the best Turkish youth development club in Turkey, with a lot of players internationally working, like Sakla Under for AC Roma. Worked there 1 year, and now actually at the moment I'm working in FC Lugano to help the club to build to an elite level. But more than that, I came back to Europe and asked myself the question: what kind of things I still wanted to develop in youth development? As I'm an academy director on pro license level, in UEFA A coaching license, but as an academy director, every year you ask yourself, the things we did, were the right things, yes or no? And in Qatar I met Michel Brownings, which is a more scientific way of looking to football, with brain central learning and Koji training and sensible. So we started cooperating, and now we work together on big projects all over the world to get rid of the conservative way of thinking in football. And it's a very hard job because it's difficult to get people out of the comfort zone and to let them realize that what we do is not really on the target of developing young players. So at the moment I'm doing that, working with Michel on big projects, which is great, and still learning every day. That's the biggest secret.
Very interesting. So let's start then with your work with the Aspire Academy in Qatar. Just obviously, if people don't know, the Qatar won the Asia Cup recently. Really surprising, I think. Not one of the favourites, but I saw a figure the other day that said 2/3 of the Qatari squad grew up together as scholars at the Aspire Academy. So I mean, that must have made you very proud.
Yeah, of course. I had a lot of reactions, and then people said, "You're not sorry that you're not there anymore." But at the end, you're going to new projects, and it's a long time, 9 years there. But it's true. It's the kids who came through the pipeline. I designed with a lot of other coaches in Aspire Academy, And I remember in 2008, the first question was from the Aspire Academy to me: we want you to enlarge the base of potential players for the national team. What's your idea? So based on that, I did my recruitment conversation with them, and I give them some examples what my idea was how to do. We developed that, and most of the players are coming out of that system. So that's proud, but not only me. We worked, of course, with a lot of people to develop this, and it's also you have to give credits to the Qataris, which were very stable in, not to get influenced by all kind of streams, because if you work in a big project like this, everybody knows it better, and you want to change like this. So to keep one way of working is very difficult, but in life you will not get too many chances to work on a big project like this, and it's a very interesting one. And in new future projects, you take all this experience with you.
Interesting. So the Aspire Academy is sponsored by the Qatari government, right?
So just to give you a little example, Qatar in 2006 mainly they started building the country, and they built Aspire Academy. So they want to build elite football players. So if you're in a country with, let's say, 300 Qataris, you have to bring all your best players or potential best players together to train. So because of the power of the government, all what we did is all the best players from all the clubs, like 14 professional clubs, and then depending on big and small clubs, we scouted in all age groups the best players, and we brought them every day to Aspire. So the best with the best trained every day, from under 5 till under 19.
Wow.
It's quite a weird situation as a club, because you have to realize, if you're a coach at a club, that during the week you don't have your players. They're in Aspire Academy, and in the weekend they come back and they play for you. But okay, the government and the big bosses in Qatar decided that was the best way to build something. And what we did is, if the money is no limitation, you can have a lot of things in your academy as well. So during the week when they were with us, we invited all big teams from all over the world to play against our boys in all age groups, so they still had the experience. So at the end, the experience in the club was for them their development not so big, and sometimes even worse, because the motivation was very low. If you're in a higher performance environment all week, and you go to a grassroots environment in the weekend, and you play during the week, you play teams as Barcelona, Ajax, or all the clubs with the big names. You get the experience, or go on tournaments. So that's how we really built the structure by increasing the training hours, because that's the most important one. Without hours of practice, you cannot improve. And if there's no limitation on the organization you can put around these players, then it's quite interesting.
Well, that's what really interests me about this project, because you have Qatar with a relatively small population, and I think it's 5 million or something, compared to Japan, 130 million odd, who they played in the final. And obviously, you're setting up a very structured environment, where often I think people, there's a big debate at the moment. I mean, for me, you see in England we've had a lot of success recently in our structured environment, so it can be a really positive environment, and you've had a lot of success with a relatively small talent pool. So really, so let's winding back a bit then. I mean, you go into the Aspire Academy, you got this almost blank slate. What were the first things you talked about? The recruitment strategy, for instance. Tell us a little bit about that, how that worked. You're talking about under 5s all the way up to under 19s coming in.
So if you look to the overall amount of football players in 2008 in Qatar, was around, with all the clubs, maybe 1,500 football players in all age groups. So it's quite easy counting that you have to increase that. And so what I did, I designed a talent center model, where we all my coaches every day visit schools in Qatar to spot the local boys born in Qatar or Qatari, to see if they have some potential. By then, if you're 5 years old, you're not a football player, you're just a little kid who likes to play football, and it was up to us to see their potential. So we put them in different talent centers. So we visit around 120 schools a year, very on a full-time basis, and my coaches every morning went there to see which kind of children were fitting our profile to go to the talent centers, where they in the first understand just enjoy football. My idea was, if they like football, then it's already a big thing, and from there we try to select the elite players to go to a centralized training center, and that was the Aspire Academy, to train already 3 to 5 times a week.
And
so when they are 5, 6 years old, they train already 3 times a week, and when they're 8 years old, they go to 5 times a week.
Wow! So you're getting the 8 and 9 year olds to 5 times a week.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
But the point is always that people are saying, you cannot do this, but I want to challenge all these people in the world, because it's a matter of what you can do in this 5 times.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been in Aspire Academy, but it's the biggest and best football academy in the world, with all facilities. So, for example, we had on Monday, they did like 40 minutes of futsal combined with gymnastics or with judo or with jiu-jitsu or other things. So we work like the total human being principle. Like we don't only want to develop the children as a football player, but also as a human being on his motor skills. Just because we had to. If you put too much emphasis on only the skills, it's a very one-sided way of education, and you will never achieve. No, you have to put in all the efforts and all the different things to do when they're very early to grow the flowers at the end of when they're 19 or when they go to the Asian Cup, for example, last month.
Yeah, interesting.
So it's a long-term project.
I mean, from my point, I worked at Chelsea and Tottenham for 10 years. I mean, for me, if we could have had those boys in 5 days a week, would be fantastic. The thought of that. I mean, you're very fortunate, I suppose. But
just to understand that before they were 12, they were 3 to 5 times a week with us, and when they were 12, even then they changed the school to our school, and we had them every day, and we trained 10 times a week, from under 12 to up. So in the morning they train, they go to school. In the evening they train, and then they go home.
Interesting.
Or if they wanted to, they could sleep on the academy because everybody had his own room.
So, for instance, how many players would you have in under 9, for instance?
Well, that's an interesting one. I tried different strategies. Like you can understand in the pyramids, you don't want to close down too early because it's so difficult to predict if somebody will go there or not. I had a lot of fights, or not fights, but really good discussions with management and coaches to change our way of thinking, because most of and still now, coaches think in a performance way, and we changed it to think in a potential way. And the potential, to understand the potential of a player is much more difficult than the performance. And the performance is not the right parameter to judge. So, that was one of the most important things, to change it and not to make it football for Aspire was not a collective thing. No, we educate football players, not teams. And that's a big difference. And if you live that life every day, as a manager, it's very hard to convince your coaches every day that they have to live by that phrase. We educate players, not teams.
So, but to give us an example then of how many players you have through each age, for instance, in the 9s and then the 12s and then the 15s.
Yeah, so like for you have to understand it's a small country, so we did different ways. With the younger ones, we took like 3 groups of 20, like A, B, C. We had the elite players, we had the potential players, and we had some we call it tractor players. Like, we see something, so we give them a chance a few times a week. But at the end, you emphasize on so many players that if you don't watch out, you don't put enough work in your potential player.
Yeah.
Because we all believe, coaches and football enthusiastic, that we can change somebody to a good player, but there's always limitation on that. So after that, I changed it to 20 players for each group, but we had very big scouting departments with around 35 people who are daily at the football clubs in Qatar to see if there was some potential players. So every time they were invited to have like a training week to see if they could add something to the level of Aspire. So it was not like a fixed group, but our power was the dynamics of the group that was always changing. And in a country where you're the decision maker, it's easy to organize. And that's for other clubs. In Europe, it's not possible. You start with players at the beginning of the season, and you have to. That's it. But we could change every time, although we didn't change like every 3 weeks we throw players out, because educational-wise that is not the right thing. But it was dynamic. It was always looking for and evaluating players, and that was the start with the young age groups. So 20 players, we call it. We had the talent centers, and then when they went under 8 or under 12, they went to the feeder groups, which all were 20 players and 3 goalkeepers. Before we tried with bigger groups, but at the end, even in a big organization like us, we changed that because it was not. You have to understand, in a small country you can find some nice potentials, but the drop off after 20 to a lower level is much higher than, for example, in Holland, where I come from, or in England, where the other 20 are still have a decent level. The less people you have, the drop off, the bigger the drop off.
And then, so tell us a bit. Then you go in there. Tell us a little bit about the methodology you set up, the technical and tactical and physical approach you implemented at the Aspire Academy.
Yeah, especially I came from Holland, where I worked at Ajax and on different clubs. So based on the Dutch way of training, you set up your program. And later on, we had Spanish influences where we all together tried to emphasize on what we did. But first of all, I never been in an organization in my life where everybody was so documented as in Aspire, because if you have so many people working there, the loss of information is something you cannot have. So all the trainings were videos, were captured on files, were discussed in daily meetings. So every time we set up a yearly planner with our goals and aims based on our experience from years before, and was dynamic. And if you know exactly how many minutes you train and what you did, then you can emphasize for the next year on what you want to change or not. And in that system, you had an individual player development plan for every single player, from under 8 till under 19. Now, one thing I realized when I did some research about Qatar is that the years before, curver was very popular in Qatar, in the Middle East, and all the local coaches were really educated by that. So a lot of individual skills with the ball and things. But when we start working with our players, we found out that actually in the games they had poor technical skills on the basics. So that was a very strange thing to experience. Like, okay, you do many years for curve training, and then the execution in every game, on every level, technical execution of simple things is very bad. So that starts you realizing that you have something to do on a different way. And then, of course, you have to take in consideration what is the culture in Qatar? How a boy from Qatar is different than somebody from England or from Holland. Where can you touch them? How can you reach them? How can you educate them? First of all, we have to educate them to, it's nice when we say, you have to train 5 times a week, 10 times a week. But if you're living in a country like Qatar and there's never was been an environment where people were used to this, then you're also busy to convince everybody that that's the right way. For me, the really interesting thing, and that's why I start also working with Michel Bruinings now, and also in Aspire we worked there for 2 years together. What we really dig in the question is, how are children or how are people learning? Because every year I was in my office or in a big room with all the coaches doing a presentation at the end of the year. We did this, we did that, we achieved that, and then you make your planning for the next year. But the interesting question for all, and it's if you work in Qatar or in Ajax or wherever, in Chelsea or other clubs, is how do I know the things I'm going to do are the right things for these players? And basically, I realized that it was many times it's based on nothing. It's we just do exercises. Okay, we do possession games, 300 hours. We do structured games. We do final third, finishing, defending, whatever. But that's also from a performance perspective looking at it. And then I did really in how are people learning. And then that's why we developed the way with quality training, which is the brain central learning exercises and the sensible, which were really helping us to, at least to get children ready to learn. Because if first question, I go with you this afternoon to a training, and are you sure your boys are ready to and open to learn? And we call this cognitive readiness. Well, I can tell you 99% of the children are going to a training, their cognitive readiness is low, so they don't learn anything. So we had to emphasize, for example, in Qatar, on the young age groups, it was the most difficult one to achieve, the cognitive readiness to be ready to learn.
So tell us a little bit about that then. I mean, you'll talk about the cognitive readiness, go in a bit more detail about what that looks like, how you get them ready, and also then talk about the sensible, how that works as well.
I don't know if you're familiar with the sensible.
Yeah, I know the sensible because I know a lot of the boys in the Belgian Academy boys use them a lot on tour. The ball on the string, right?
Yeah, Genk. Genk is one of our clubs we're working with.
Yeah, I know Genk.
We have big achievements with that. But okay, I don't want to make it too scientific. But if we talk about football and we sit together, we first have to ask the question. So all the actions your players are making, where is it starting from? It's from the brain. No, it's not from the muscles. I had a discussion last week with a coach. He said, I do this process for 20 minutes and then I want my strikers to have muscle memory in finishing. They asked him, muscle memory? What's muscle memory? He said, that they recognize how to kick and how to choose the decision. But that's a joke, There's no muscle memory. The muscle is very stupid. If the nerves don't send the signals to the muscles, there's nothing happening. If you cut down the nerves, everything starts from the brain. So, we call it recognized prime decision making. If you don't work with your players on that, we just putting some water in a kettle on the fire without any ingredients, and we think the soup is nice. So that's a thing still we have to develop. So we start when we had the Qatari boys in the academy. You cannot imagine it. You have to understand they come from a different culture. They have everything. They have the mates. So we had to find a way to get them. Cognitive readiness. So we use the sensible, which in the beginning really I tell you to work with it. After 12, we counted and we measured it. After 12 seconds, they lost their concentration. So imagine, as a coach, you set up your training and you have players who are losing their concentration after 12 seconds. So we start building that, 12 seconds, 20 seconds, next month, half a minute. And really what they learned from that is that the sensible is such a great tool that they learned how to switch on and off their cognitive readiness. As you know, you cannot be concentrated for 3 hours to learn, but by using the tools and our exercises also with the coaching training, they learned how to switch on and off. And that's where they start learning and were more open and ready to achieve information and really to put it in mind.
So the idea is that they focus on the touch of the sensible, and then that focuses their learning readiness.
Yeah. Well, at the end, it's also two-footed, so you have to play with both feet. Sorry. But also, the sensible is a metronome, and everything we do in our brain is directed by the metronome and the synchronization. We don't realize it, but at the end, you want your brain to understand what is happening, and we call this system 1 and system 2. Now system 1 is very easy. I play the ball to you, you play the ball to me. But at the end, you want players who are more intelligent. I'm also in Qatar, I had coaches next to me on the bench, and he said, listen, this player is they were always practicing like very predictable, and always the same things. And then during the match, he told me, yeah, listen, this player is not creative, is not decision making, but you learned him like this. So, that's a very funny and interesting thing. We are the ones who learn the player the things they are doing. Now, system 2 in our head is a very interesting one. If I ask you 1 + 1, you will immediately say that's 2. But that's not the interesting thing in football. You're more interested in when I ask you 23 - 4 + 6 -8 and +4. How much is that? You cannot really directly tell me. Now, we developed practice exercises where you were training system 2, and in game-related situations, the players recognize, because it was put in the brain, directly those kind of things.
So what would be the difference?
Yeah, so the exercise with the normal exercise is much different. We started with the cross, triangles, and there are some basic principles in our organization who always will come back. So for example, the one of the things, the didactical levels of our training programs are always synchronization, cognitive readiness, bilaterality, executive functioning, memorizing, categorizing, associating, movement, angle, timing. We call this math. Space awareness, working with autonomous learning. So this is all based on how we are as human beings are learning, and this kind of things were really put to place by Michel. Even in education, we found out by working like this with our boys that they also had better results in school, which the parents really liked, because they learned how to organize everything in their head. It's not only for football; it's also for who you are as a person.
So for instance, what you're describing there is that the players have to go through certain patterns with the sensible different combinations, for instance, and different.
Yeah, well, that's sensible. In coaching training, we do all kind of structured games, passing games, but also based on our learning principles will always have to be in there. Like, okay. We realize we call this like we have a player in system 1 and system 2. Now the player in system 1, we always think this player is very physical. He's strongly verticalized, so one-sided. He do a lot of running with the ball, many individual actions. He has difficulty to mastering time and space. And he plays long passes to players in fixed positions. Well, that's another type of game which was really on Qatari's profile. So we thought, okay, we want players from system 2 who first think and then act, so anticipative soccer. So that means you go for more team play, conscious changes of positions, fast passing, variable tactical patterns, high team concentration, transitions, more creativeness, better mastering of time and space, and a mutual respect. So it's a different way of looking to football. And as you see, the national team now is really playing like this. They're not playing like a long ball football. I don't know if you saw some matches, but there's really football which is based on their culture, which is so that's a good thing.
So it's playing devil's advocate, Ed here. What about what's the difference between using a sense ball and then me just doing kick-ups with a normal football and not on a string?
In 1 minute, 120 more touches.
Okay, I mean, but
so
then they
more,
would then
120 more times signals to the brain about something which is wrong or right.
But then I suppose the other argument would be maybe that how realistic are those touches if the ball's on the string coming back every time?
And how much realistic is it when it doesn't make sense that kicking the ball is from A to B and B to A? So it's a matter of the sense ball, but then I have to really go in deep in what it's doing. Is not only the touches.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, it's a cognitive readiness, which emphasized. It's a synchronization, which is a very big tool in our learning way of learning, but it's also the mental commitment to do it and to develop the executive functions.
Okay, so
cool. And also the guide to autonomous learning, because a lot of those things are happening at home. If you have football players who are really only coming to your training and want to improve, then I can tell you, forget it, you will never be an elite player.
I mean, I know those guys at Genk. I know the guys quite well at Genk, and I know they've got a very technical program there as well, so that obviously ties in really well with them. But let's go back to Qatar and Aspire. Then just tell us a little bit about then. So, obviously you talked about your time at Ajax. Was their philosophy a really important part of what you set up there in Aspire?
No, it's not possible to copy-paste an Ajax system in Qatar. The starting point is very dangerous to do that, or whatever, or a Barcelona system, or whatever, somewhere in China.
But I suppose you have. Maybe an inspiration. Obviously you have to start somewhere, right? Your background is obviously really important to where you've arrived at that stage. And obviously, what interests me as well is that not just the Dutch way of developing players is obviously really successful, and also you export a lot of coach educators as well. I know in America, all over the world. So I'm just interested in how come a relatively small population exports such quality in terms of players and coaches around the world.
Yeah, that is an interesting one. That when you're working in Holland, you don't realize it. But I worked more than 10 years outside and still outside the country. Then you realize exactly the strengths and weakness of your own country. One of the biggest things, our advantage is that Holland is a small country. A small country, but with a lot of people on a small area. Which means that, and with a very organized way of playing football from amateur level to elite level to professional clubs. So that means for every children who wants to play football, there's a possibility in a little village or not. And I can tell you the accommodations are really, from the amateur clubs, most of the time the same as at the professional club. It's maybe less pitches, but it's the same level. So that's the advantage where the Dutch Association could really organize a very structured way of competitions and age groups playing together or friendly matches. You don't have to travel much. And then over the years, the Dutch, the KNVB, the Dutch Football Association, is a very powerful organization in Dutch football. They have the power above the clubs. So that means all the ideas and the plans are coming from them and are, influenced to the clubs, and they follow. I know, for example, in England, I don't think the FA has so much influence on the big clubs as Chelsea and Manchester City how to use the youth programs.
No, not at all.
They say, "What do you want?" Huh?
That's completely
so
right.
in Holland, one of our powers is that everything comes from the association. And they are really, the leaders from the grassroots football, which is a very, is a bigger organization than the pro organization. So, and that's where the players are coming from to the elite academies. So it's a really, there's always discussions. People are talking with each other, and that's the role of the association. They bring the big clubs together to talk about development. I think that's one of the secrets. And then, of course, with our philosophy of total football and with the time that Johan Cruyff brought in his ideas. That's still our roots of football will always be like this.
I mean, and also, for me, that I look at those players that come out of Holland, all very technical, really technical and tactical players, obviously. But I've visited Ajax quite a few times over the last few years, and it's interesting actually. When I was there last time, I watched the under-8s train, and the coach actually said the same thing as you. He said, "I'll have to check whether the boys are ready to learn." And because he did started off with a game, he just said he just watched them see if they're ready to learn. But my point being anyway is that. Was it your aspiration to try and get those quality technical players that you get coming out of Holland so readily, who are really good and creative? You talked about creative midfielders earlier. You like those players, where Holland has such a prolific history of getting those sorts of players coming out into the pro game. Was it your ambition to replicate that in Qatar?
Well, you can do that, but then suddenly you see that the level is quite different, and that everything you have to understand. When just to give you a little example, when I went there, and you're still in your Ajax mood or in your Holland mood, and you're suddenly working with children who don't have these great examples to be as a professional player. For example, I remembered we organized big football festivals, and then I thought it was a nice idea to bring some players from the professional clubs in Qatar to be around and to look at the boys, which I thought, okay, they will really inspire them. And they came to the pitch, and then the young boys asked me, "Who is this? Is this also a coach?" And then I realized that the whole environment and the culture of football was not in place. So we had to work first on that. You have to imagine that a young boy who goes to Ajax, probably he saw already 300 games of football on TV with his father or in the stadium. And by then they get influenced, and already they know a lot of things about the game. In Qatar it was totally different. Some boys didn't know anything about football. The only advantage is that we could have them all every day and work with them. But it was so your influence is not only on the field, but it's more on the person, to let them understand what it takes to be a professional player. And that's why also at the end, when they were 16, we took them out of the country. We bought some clubs in other countries to let our young players to grow. Akram Afif, which is really the star player of the national team, when he was 16, he went to Spain to grow with Villarreal, and later on he went to Eupen in Belgium. So it was an individual pathway to let them see what it takes to be a professional player, because in the country itself was not possible. And so you cannot compare, and even now I'm working in Switzerland, it's different. I worked in Russia, I worked in Turkey. You have to respect first the culture of where you work and not try to bring your culture to the country. That's dead-end street, will not work.
But that's the other interesting thing. About culture. I know you know Tom Bayer as I do. He talks about it a lot. Football culture at the early ages. You mentioned it earlier. How it's quite an affluent society. How do you? Was there a problem in culture in convincing the parents that actually it was worthwhile these young guys playing football and pursuing a footballing career?
Yeah, that was a hard thing, to tell them, that they had to come 5 times a week on an early age to come. That's why when they were 12, we put a school there. So we had them already every day for school, so we could train them there. But every time our managers were local Qataris, so we had to educate them to please bring them, to make them understand that only in that way we could reach a kind of level. Because if you have everything when you are born, then it's very difficult to show them something they have to go for. I remember I had one time a boy, who I thought, okay, you have to give more effort during training to achieve a higher level. He was 17, and I told him, listen, please, next time, listen more to the coach and do this. And at the end of the conversation, he told me, okay, coach, I will try to do my best. And then he drove away in his Ferrari. you know. So, so I always tell this story to show people how difficult it is and how much you have to go inside a player, and that has nothing to do with skills. You have to touch them, you have to let them believe, and this success in Qatar is a big step forward to grow.
I mean, because that also interests me, because you almost went there with a blank slate to create a culture, if you like. But I mean, because I'm interested in that as well. I mean, we look at England, the way we've changed in the last development cycle. We're producing much more technical players. Teams playing more technical, a lot helped by the FA changing the way the youth teams play, but also the academies now producing a lot more technical players. I think football culture in England has definitely changed. What about, so I look at somewhere, for instance, like Sweden, a population of 10 million, and Scandinavia, why maybe countries like that don't produce technical players, and not really technical culture, but contrasting with someone, for instance, like Holland or Croatia, where there's a real culture of footballing, technical footballers. Why do you think there's such a disparity amongst these nations?
I think that's exactly what I was trying to tell us, is the culture. It all starts from a culture of where you live and who you want to be. Dutch people are very adventurous. So also our football is, based on that. We are curious people. We like to go on adventure. Even in Ajax, for example, I know that the people, when we get the championship at the end of the year, and it is with bad football, like not the technical Ajax football, people are not happy. And when we end up second in the season, but the football is nice, everybody is more happy. So that's a strange way of looking to things. And some other countries, it's only about the results. And even in the country itself, it can change by club culture. Our advantages of the technical football, I believe that we have an organized way of playing football from 5 years till whatever age for many years. I think in England, the young age football is not such a long track. Correct me if I'm wrong, it's not a department which is set up for so many years in such an organized way. In England, it's more when they are young, they play different sports, and for example, they can go to different academies to shop a little bit. I've been there, so one day I was in United, I saw some young player, next day I was in another club in Everton, and they also did some training sessions. This is kind of things will not happen in Holland very easily, because it's you go to an amateur club, and then from there you go to a professional club, and there's more structure, I believe. I'm happy to see in England that it's changing, but I think they still have a long way to go. I still see the physical strong players in the under 16s and 17, but it will come. It will take a long way. Your most difficult thing is that you need coaches who are able to do this kind of training sessions.
I mean that's the thing. You recognise that there's still in these countries an overemphasis on physicality rather than football intelligence on technique.
No, or more even different is to say our coach is looking to performance or to potential.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. If you could play a match on Saturday, he comes and asks you, so how did it go? And you said, yeah, we win 3-0. That's a performance idea. I'm not interested in the result. We're interested in the development of our players. So I want you to talk to me about which kind of players, showed their progress, or which one were struggling. And all those talks about late and early developers, it's nice and all those, but you don't need. It's very simple to resolve this. Is to say as a club or as an organization, we educate football players, not teams. And then the whole issue of a late or early developer is gone, because you will make a pathway for an early or a late developer, because you look to him as a person. But if you play a late developer, you put him in a team and you say, yeah, but he's not helping the team to win. Yeah, that's correct. Then you have a problem. Understand? So individual player development is exactly what in Holland is that we're not educating teams anymore, only individual players, and we use the team as a tool.
Interesting.
Before in England you get this kind of, believe me, I visit some clubs, I will not tell you names, and big clubs. No, it's still far away from this point of view. You know, and of course, if they're under 18, under 17, it's all the performance comes in a bit before. That's our secret in Holland, in Belgium. You know, we don't talk about the performance; we're talking about the potential.
Interesting. So then, back to Aspire Academy. Just talk, how many coaches did you have there working there in the academy?
Totally. Well, in the academy, on the total process, there were around, I believe, more than 2,000 people working.
Wow.
But then, I mean, the school, we had our own hospital, you know, but state of the art, Aspire with the biggest best doctors in the world to help. So, it's a very big organization, and I think probably it's the biggest organization for me, at least, I worked in. It's also giving, it's nice, but also giving you problems, because when you have a lot of persons who are working in an organization, everybody wants to be important. The working lines are very long, and sometimes you need shorter lines. So that was always the fight.
Well, that would be my next question, Ed. Sorry to interrupt there. Just so in terms of the academy coaches, though, what percentage of the academy coaches were Qatari, and what percentage were foreigners?
99% were foreigners in the beginning.
Yeah.
And we tried to educate Qatari coaches, but it was not so easy. Well, you can call everybody coaches, but to put them on a level where we think, okay, there was adding something to the academy, was difficult. Why? Again, because they didn't have the background like we have from football, and you don't have the time to do it 50 years. You want to do it in a range of 10 years. So we educate them. Sometimes it was difficult for them because the mentality, and they are used to not to work, with all respect, but football to grow football players is hard work. It needs dedication and commitment. That's a difficult thing. So there were always Qataris involved, but at the coaching side was always less. All the managers of the teams, and we call it team managers, they were all Qataris, and that was great, you know, because they know more the problems and possibilities of the players than we did.
Yeah.
So the content was more with European coaches, and I worked with German coaches, English coaches, Spanish coaches, Italian coaches, but also coaches from Tunisia, from Algeria, who spoke Arabic, because in the academy all our boys learned English, but before, in the younger ages, I always had an English-speaking coach and an Arabic-speaking coach on the team.
And if you're like recruiting for a coach, what sort of qualities are you looking for in a coach?
That's an interesting one, because I just had a conversation with somebody who had to recruit many coaches in another country. And he said, how did you do this? Because I was also, my responsibility was the coaching recruitment for the academy. Well, first of all, if I talked to a person, I was wondering if I was able to see him doing it. And that I never started with asking him questions about his football environment, but more about what kind of person it is. Because if you work in a country like Qatar, you know, you're far away from your family. Some take their families, sometimes you don't take your family, sometimes your family's in Qatar and you have to travel with a team for a month. As a person, are you able to do this? To work with this kind of commitment? I can tell you, not everybody wants it, but not everybody can do it. It's you have to be a special person, and you start asking questions to see what kind of person it is. Can he deal with, I don't know what your experience, but I worked with a lot of coaches who, I believe in this, I believe in that, I believe, this is my philosophy. Yeah, if you work in a big organization, it's not your philosophy. You have to work by the academy, by the country's philosophy. And a lot of coaches are very stubborn and they want to do their thing, but then you're not my you need to follow the academy structure, our philosophy, our methodology, our minutes. In there you bring your training, but it's all for a higher goal, I guess, to achieve, and not your own goal.
And so, for instance, your coaches, did they work from a syllabus? How much freedom did they have in session design? What did that look like?
In the beginning when we started, it was not there, but that was 2008. But little by little, we started building it, and we worked at the end. We worked with Soccer Lab. I don't know if you're familiar with the system. Okay. It's a big software program. And it was customized, if money is not an issue, you bring in this company, and it was customized to all our needs. So we worked every week in a methodology with different phases. And then every 2 weeks we did, for example, we worked with one team for 2 weeks, and then we changed, and it went from possession to progressive play or to finishing. So every week it was given, and then per age group also we had on Thursday, which was the last day of the week in a Muslim country, we had meetings with every age group on the most important points on this phase for this age groups, what we want to achieve. Then the training was executed, then the exact minutes is before the week we said, okay, so many minutes, but you never know what's happened in training. So then they had to file the exact minutes. So at the end of the year we had a quite clear view about what we did at the end. And we could discuss and change, but at the end, it was about the football directors who, I was one of the directors, I worked with a Spanish colleague, is how we achieve the next things. Is that making a little bit sense?
Absolutely, yeah. Interesting. So then
it was not the freedom of the coach to do what he wanted to do. It was pretty lined what to do, and as directors we were always on the pitch to adjust the coaching or to help the coaches to understand which way we wanted to go.
Okay, so then just briefly, I know you're a busy man, I won't keep you that long, Ed. Just tell a little bit about then how it works now with Total Football Consultancy, your consultancy firm. You're working at FC Lugano. Are you just going in there supporting in the consultancy role, or are you managing their academy?
Yeah, well, so when I came back in 2017, when I was coming back, I was asking myself. Well, I was in Qatar. I was asking myself, what do I want to do? I want to stay to the World Cup, or I want to do some other things. And I still wanted to there's a lot of things to develop in football. That's why I choose to come back and to have my own consultancy company and to help clubs or associations to fine-tune their goals and their aims. So what I do is I come in and I analyze the situation in the club. We advise them how to improve, and from there on we also work on the methodology, which is based on the brain central learning, and coach the coaches, having discussions with the owners about which pathways they have to go to describe the structures. So all kind of things, depending on where the organization is on the moment. And sometimes it's very on detail, and sometimes it's very global because the club is not so far. But my advantage is I've been in many projects where I saw the first step and I saw the result at the end line. And I worked on the highest, to my idea, Alex was just one of the clubs who has the highest rate of homegrown players to be a professional player.
Yeah.
So you take all those experience and then, but the most important thing for me is when I come somewhere is not to tell what to do, but I have always a lot of questions, and maybe that's something for your listeners or people is ask yourself sometimes if you give more answers to the people you work with, or you are asking more questions. I found out that asking questions is more valuable, and is where you really dig into something deep than in giving the answers.
And then,
because sometimes the truth is different.
And about yourself, Ed, what do you do how do you keep fresh with ideas of professional development? What do you do to keep that going?
Yeah, well, in Holland, but I think that's also in England, you have to have some, every years you have to get points for your coaching licenses. So that you need to go to courses. But when I'm in Holland, because I work outside, but when I'm in Holland, I'm visiting a lot of times many academies, all kinds of different clubs, professional clubs, to have a talk, because I know all the people to discuss, to see where are they, what's new, what are they aiming for, what are their problems. We are very open-minded about that here, and we all want to help this small country to be back on a high stage again. And on the other hand, that's why I choose to work with Michel. Michel is a very interesting guy, and so many research in his head and new things that I feel like I started all over again 2 years ago. So that's great to do, and I would advise all coaches, please look out of your comfort zone and ask yourself critical questions about the things you're doing, if it's correct or not.
And that's going to be my next question. You might have preempted me a little bit, but what advice would you give to an up and coming coach who wants to try and get to a position like you have at the top of the game?
Start from thinking with your eyes, what you see when you watch a training or a game. Try to dig in what really is happening. Try to emphasize on the player, how he reacts, how he walks, how he solves things, where are his possibilities, his problems. I know the technology is nowadays. I come from the time that we had to discover everything ourselves and to really think deep. Now with the internet, I feel sometimes that coaches are a little bit lazy. They just go internet, they check some exercises, they put it in practice, and that's it. Sometimes I even believe that they're already tired before they go to the pitch, because they were so busy to prepare the training in the computer. But at the end, if I go to see the training, I only see a coaching way we call this stage 1. And that's nothing. Stage 1 of coaching is for us is like you put down the practice, you let them do your prepared exercises, and you're happy. That's not, on every level, that's not a training session. Stage 1 is to organize it well. Stage 2 is to adapt and to come up with coaching points. And stage 3 is to dig in and to change the organization, that they have to come again out of the comfort zone to learn. Because everything you do in training is based on routine. Forget it, they never learn anything anymore. It's for us. We want our players to come out of the comfort zones. So please, as a coach or as a manager or a director, you have to challenge yourself and have to come out of the comfort zone every day as well.
Fantastic. And where can we find out more about yourself, Ed, and the brain-centered learning you've just been talking about?
Well, at the moment you can, I'm working more on the background in Michel's philosophy. So, but if you check Michel's name online and you go to Koji Training or Sensible, you even find some presentations, and we do also workshops all over the world. So if they follow Koji Training and Sensible, they will find some interesting information.
Fantastic.
And, people are really interested for clubs are also welcome to, when we're in Lugano, to come there and to talk with us and to see what we do.
Fantastic.
Or one of our clubs, like Genk, is really one of our model clubs, and with great results, which are following this pathway.
Yeah, I'm actually going to visit Genk in the next couple of months, so I'm really interested to see what they're going to be doing there.
Yeah, you will love it.
Lovely. Ed, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's been really interesting.
Okay, thank you very much, and hope to see you in the future.
Thanks for tuning in to the MyPersonalFootballCoach.com Soccer Player Development Podcast. MyPersonalFootballCoach.com's Dynamic Ball Mastery Program is the world's leading online individual technical training program, proven and developed at the highest level in the English Premier League. Sign up now to train like the pros and take your game to the next level. Master the ball, master the game.